Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, CF Montreal's lost at Columbus, and some rule changes in the Canadian Premier League. That and a lot more on episode 221 of The Ball is Round. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. As you guys can see, I'm joined by my good buddy Elias. How are we doing, Elias?
I'm doing wonderful. Barcelona didn't win, but they did extend their lead in La Liga. Soccer season is starting. I'm sick. CF Montreal lost. Oh no, not so good. Maybe, but whatever.
Hey, man, but Barcelona did win against Atletico Madrid in Copa del Rey.
They
So
did. On to the final. There's another Clásico in a month.
that's what's up. That's
3
what's
weeks.
up. Bayern Munich beat Augsburg, my favorite club. Augsburg 3-1. But
Your
Jamal
favorite club is
Musiala
Augsburg?
left. Sorry? No, man, Bayern Munich. Ugh, I messed
You
up the
never mentioned
sentence,
that. That's
okay?
so weird.
But Jamal Musiala left with a worrisome injury. But the big story, Elias, is that Thomas Mueller announced that he's leaving the team at the end of
I
the season.
know. It's so sad.
Dude,
I love
honestly, I
Thomas
wish
Muller.
if
I love
by
Thomas.
any luck he comes to CF Montreal. Wow, I absolutely, or a team that plays against CF Montreal, I would love to see him, man. I absolutely love Thomas Mueller when
I think that's
he
more
plays.
likely
Yeah,
than him at Sepulveda. Let's just
honestly,
say that much.
he's like one of the, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, one of the game's greatest at because he literally, I believe, he built like a position. Like he doesn't have a defined position, and he's so
Yeah.
good at it. So
Mhm.
it's I just he's a very modern player. Absolutely love him. But yeah, good evening to you guys. Good evening, Roberto. Don't forget, guys. Those that are listening, you guys can always send us a little comment. We're gonna go ahead and address it when we can, because we also do have a few things that we want to talk about. So let's get right into it, Elias. CF Montreal versus Columbus Crew. And yes, hello, David. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Sam too.
Uh,
Shout out
and
Sam Savage.
Sam, thank you for joining, guys. All of you guys, even if you don't say hi, good evening to all of y'all. We're happy that you're here with us tonight. Um, while there is another MLS game today, there's Miami versus Toronto, but who cares about them? Nobody cares about that. But anyways, let's talk about CF Montreal versus Columbus Crew. Second game under Marco Donadell. What were you expecting from the team? Just what were you expecting before the game?
I was expecting some defensive consistency, right? I was expecting this was obviously a much more significant challenge, right? This is Columbus. They're exceptional with the ball. They're at home. They are borderline unbeatable at home. And you give them the ball in space and they will kill you. And so I wanted to just see a well organized defense. And we're going to get into my thoughts about that a little bit later. But that was the one thing I wanted. Like offensively, I would have liked to see them take their chances, which they kind of did.
Mm-hmm.
But I was more focused on the defensive side of the ball and keeping their shape, staying organized, not getting broken down too easily. All stuff that definitely happened.
I think you just didn't. I think what Elias is trying to say in a very nice way is he didn't want Columbus Crew to open a can of whoop ass for against CF
Well, the
Montreal.
thing is, they haven't had a can of whoop ass opened on them this year, right?
Yeah,
When you think about
right.
it, even the 2-0 and the 3-0 was not a can of whoop ass, right? The
Yeah.
score lines were significant, but let's be real here. It's not like they were played off the pitch at any point this season, and that's still the case with last night.
And that had a lot to do with the defense that was playing, and we'll get into that. We'll really dissect it today. Let's go ahead and look at the lineup, Elias. So we can go of last night. So at goal we had Josie Roy. On the right, as right back, we had Alex Guboglu, George Campbell, Joel Waterman as back two, and as a left back we had Luca Petrasso. On the mid three we had Sam Piet, Victor Latori, Nathan Saliba. As a winger on the left, we had Caden Clark, striker Prince Owusu, and on the right side, Dante Seeley. What'd you think when you saw this?
I thought, it makes
Only
sense that
one
they go
change.
with a more, yeah, Bryce Duke for Nathan Saliba. But like if Nathan Saliba is fit, he's starting. That's not really up for debate. It was more Victor Laturi or Bryce Duke, I think, was the real question here. Um, I wasn't too surprised to see Laturi get the start over Bryce Duke if you're looking for a more well-rounded and solid midfield three. And Bryce Duke, even though he did do well against Chicago, doesn't necessarily bring the kind of work rate that's needed to cover all the space that you know you have to cover when you're playing against a team like Columbus. So I wasn't too surprised. This lineup felt, you know, fairly straightforward and fairly, well justified based on performances.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised that I didn't know what change to expect. I saw it and I was like, okay, well, it's good to see Nathan Saliba back. Honestly, it is because I felt like they missed him last week. I didn't know
Mm,
how fast it would come. I didn't know it was going to be Bryce Duke. I thought it would have been Victor Lattori, but they chose to put all three in. And when I saw that, I said, well, this game is about to get very very interesting because as the games goes on and the schemes and we're starting to see this scheme take shape under Donadell, we're seeing a different side of Victor Lattori, which I find very interesting. I'm
mhm, yeah,
starting to discover him as a player, and last night was interesting. So again, I was very excited, very excited that we've only seen one change in this lineup because
consistency.
it's been a minute. It's been a
Hell
minute.
yeah,
That so, let's hope that it stays that way because that's one of the hard. I think one of the issues that we had Elias last season. We don't want to go back too much into the whole Laurent Courtois era because let's kind of move on, right? And but at the end of the day, that really was one of the biggest critiques we had in 2024 was the inconsistency in the lineups, right? So you just see a lineup that looks consistent. You gotta be excited about it, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely,
let's go ahead and get into it. So we'll start from the back. Let's start with Jonathan Sirois. What were your thoughts on
yeah.
his game, and what could he have done better?
Honestly, Jason Russell Rowe's finish was excellent. He placed it perfectly. I don't think anyone would fault Jonathan Siwa for letting that go. But that opener was unsung goal. For so that opener was a little bit disappointing. He made up for it with an amazing stop on Rossi. And
Mhm.
I think that look, Jonathan Sirois is not going to have a game where he completely, absolutely drops the ball and is just horrible, right? But there's moments, right? And you think to yourself, you look at that game, you look at that first goal, and you go, "Oh, I know he wanted that back," because I feel like he could have ended up making a stop there. Um, it's not like he hasn't bailed out the defense a million times in the last 2 seasons or
Yeah.
2.5 years. Um, so I was a little bit disappointed when I saw that one, especially with the way it went in. But again, both of those goals, I want to talk when we get to the defense, both those goals, how are they in positions like this? And what the hell happened that
Yeah.
led to those opportunities to begin with? That being said, in a vacuum, that first one, I would like to see him stop it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like I mean, I can't say that he had a bad game.
No.
Um, if if I could if I would want to see him do something better. We've talked about his distribution since last year, and I don't want to get into that again. But I want to see him, Elias. I want to see him become more of an imposing figure on the field. Becoming not he's not going to score goals. I don't. That doesn't mean to make insane
Mhm.
stops. That's not what I mean. What I mean is I want him to become more of a leader in the game and be able to really dictate his defenders and where he wants to go because at times he just kind of seems to me, this is my opinion, I think he seems a little bit maybe frail in the sense that he's not very sure as to what he doesn't really scare any number nines or any strikers that are out there. So yeah, the shots were fantastic. So it's very hard to blame him for that. But I just want to ask one question because Josie was on his third coaching. Since he took the starting role. He was with Hernan Lasada, Laurent Courtois, and now it's Marco Donadel. What does he need to do now until the end of the season to take that next step in his career, Elias?
Besides sounding like a broken record and saying stopping and getting better with the ball at his feet, I think it's just continuing to do what he does, but at a more consistent and a higher level. Right? He's already, statistically speaking, he's already a top tier shot stopper in MLS. right? When it
Hmm.
comes to just pure, what you know, they say that, right? It's kind of an old head saying, but if you're a goaltender, you tend the goal, right? When it comes to tending the goal physically, he is very good at that, and he's one of the better in MLS at that specifically. But again, now it's just operating at a higher level. And one of the things is what you just said, right? You have to have that authoritative presence, and he does have that at home. When he's at Stat Saputo and he feels comfortable and he's in his element, he looks like that area is his. And they've got like this force field up, and nothing goes by. Not nothing, but significantly less goes by than on the road. But now it's all about, going into opposing territory and operating in that same way that I'd like to see him do better.
Yeah, and that's it. Like to me, it's if he wants to take that next step in his career, and I don't know if it's going to be with CF Montreal for the rest of his career or anywhere that he goes. I mean, goalies are weird, man. Everybody knows that goalies are just have weird personalities, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Weird isn't bad, but it's just they're they just don't seem sometimes a little bit off, but because that's just the way they're built. But um but at the same time, you see them, Elias, in other teams, other goalies that in Europe or here, that the moment like they get mad, they get angry, and they chew out their defenders. They're not afraid of chewing out their defenders. They're not afraid of chewing out the midfielders, of really saying, "Hey guys, wake the f up," like it's time to play, kind of deal. Whether it's they're down 1-0 or they're up 5-0 and the opponent scored one goal. So that's what you want to see from Josie Hua, right? More grow from its person. So, but I mean, again, new scheme. Well, it's a limited
Mhm.
amount of games that we've seen with this new rule. So we'll see. But let's look at the back two. We touched on it
Uh,
with Joel Waterman and George Campbell. Last week we were talking about it, Elias, and we said we were very, I think we both agreed that these two look like they should be the starters for the rest of the season.
yeah,
But it's the
until further
first time
notice.
in the 7 games, right, since the start of the season, is the first time I think that we saw them uncomfortable. We saw them uncomfortable. We saw them make mental lapses or bad judgments on the ball in the first half. Be very specific, in the first half. We saw again. I've spoken about it in this pod. I've said if George Campbell continues to show this consistency week after week, he is not going to be part of CF Montreal in 2025. He's definitely going to be transferred elsewhere where he'll bank. But yesterday showed, in my opinion, almost like that they still Columbus, a team like Columbus that is so well placed and just knows each other like the back of their hands, can still like expose you in that sense. What do you think? I'm sorry, I kind of went on my own rant there.
No, no, that's totally justified. Look, they both, and again, I've been a fan of Joel Waterman's for a while, really since he broke through with the squad under Wilfred Nancy, um, who actually greeted him as he was leaving, when he came off injured. He had a little, you know, moment with Wilfred Nancy, and I've said it before. I love George Campbell, and I love George Campbell and the kind of player he's become this season. The two of them in the first half were abysmal. They were terrible.
Mm.
They, again, not single-handedly, but they were the main reasons for both of those goals. And I want to show you guys a little bit of something. I want to show you guys a picture. This is maybe 5 seconds before the opening goal. What looks funny here? What doesn't, one of these things is not like the other. Why in God's name is George Campbell marking Rossi all the way back to the Columbus penalty area?
Well,
Why are you
Elias,
further ahead? Why are you further ahead than Samuel Piet? It makes no sense. And then when everything falls apart, which of course it does, it's Columbus. They could play out of anywhere. By magic, oh my God, it's like a 3-on-2 now. And then they convert because it's Columbus. Of course they do. Columbus in
but
space is going to kill you every single time.
yeah,
This, and again, Joel Waterman, don't get me wrong, he was not blameless on the second goal. He got completely turned as if he wasn't there. So both defenders were, again, not solely responsible because it is a team game and conceding goals is a team effort. They were hugely responsible for both of those goals. and it's unacceptable. Like, this is not like, you got beat. This is unacceptable. Lapses in concentration. This cannot be allowed.
Yeah, and you know what, Elias, if you bring that image up again, um, Marco Donadel in his press conference, post game press conference, he said we were playing a very man to man defense where we literally, like in basketball, Elias, we follow our man wherever they go. That is man to man, which means you'll see a center back in a striker position if Diego Rossi goes all the way to the center back position, because they were sticking to their man. And as he said it, he said this also unfortunately leads to goals and leads to maybe risky where you drag out a natural center back and you're maybe bringing a Dante Sealy all the way back. Does it work? I don't know if playing that kind of defense is the right one to do when you're playing away from home with such a good team like Columbus Crew.
Especially the second time you're playing.
Yeah, exactly. So but it definitely, that's why at some points I again, I was watching the game last night, and you would see you would see Nathan Saliba all the way in the ninth, all the way up front, and it's like consistently. And it definitely was one of those things where you started kind of wondering like,
Yeah.
what's going on. But yeah, it just, like you said, a very very abysmal performance in the first half. But the second half they looked a little bit more settled, but Joel Waterman was no longer there. It
Yeah.
They said
I
it's
think he would have had a good second half if he had stayed, if he hadn't got hurt. Fernando Alvarez did very well, but I mean, David made a good point. This happened all the time. The difference is there were three center backs, so if one gets caught up, there's two there to support. But now that you are essentially playing with little to no safety net when you're playing as a four back, you cannot go man to man all the way up the field. I understand if you're employing a man to man press, but if someone leaves completely, you cannot go fall. That's exactly what they want.
mm,
Just a little bit of intuitive thinking and proper decision making. And I guess, if we're talking about George Campbell, that's the next step, right? In possession, his decision making has gone excellent. Now, out of possession, his off ball defending, let's see him get a bit better at that. There's also a question from Patrick about any word on Vrioni and Sinchuk. Both are 100%. They're back to training with the group, full for every aspect of training. They weren't there last week, or sorry, yesterday, because they're on their way back. I would not be surprised if they were at the very least all three of them. So Vrioni, Sinchuk, and Neil were at the very least on the bench next week.
we'll talk about that a little bit later, because there's a lot
Yeah,
to look forward to now that they're playing at home. But just to kind of give back, so let's just assume Joel Waterman left early in the game
yeah.
because what seemed like a head injury,
It is
a
a concussion,
concussion.
by the way. It is
Yeah,
no.
and
It doesn't. It is a concussion.
concussions could last from a week, probably not a week, but like months sometimes, because unfortunately when we talk about the brain, it's unpredictable, right? So with that said, he could be out the next game.
Yeah.
Who replaces him? Is it too soon for Jalen Neal to make an
Yes.
appearance in the starting lineup?
Yes.
And did Fernando Alvarez do enough to deserve a start
Yes to
to
both.
replace? Okay,
Yes to
okay.
both. I think Fernando Alvarez looked good. He's played about 90 minutes total if you include all the substitute appearances. He looks comfortable in possession. You're playing Charlotte, who are not a super attacking. They're more of a counter-attacking side anyway next week. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a start. At the same time, Jalen Neal has only been training. He has no game experience with the club. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes off the bench. But yeah, I think that it's his again, this is under the assumption that Joe Waterman is not available, which is likely since Marco Donadel said it is a concussion, and people don't really recover from a concussion in a week, maybe two, whatever, but not 1 week.
Yeah.
Um, it's very likely going to be Fernando Alvarez, and I think that he's done more than enough to be the best choice right now. But Jalen Neal is not far behind if that doesn't work out.
Yeah, and I think that Fernando Alvarez, the way I've seen him play, it always felt like when we were playing when the CF Montreal was playing a back three, he always seemed a little bit like, again, that it required a lot more from him than he
Hmm.
was capable. Where I believe that in the back two, and the kind of defense that they want to play now, it's more fitting to what the way he likes to play from the back and really likes to do the long pass and all that. Does it mean that he's going to be good at it? No idea, but it does look, again, very natural, much more natural. So this could be a golden opportunity for Fernando Alvarez to show that he deserves a starting spot, or if not, or if George Campbell leaves, that he's the next choice, because Jalen Neal is a big investment, Elias. We
Yep.
can't forget that. So there's a lot of pressure on the coach and the club to make sure that that investment works out. Fernando Alvarez was also a big investment for this club, but it's an investment that was maybe, what are we talking about, a year and a half ago now, maybe that, or has it not been that long? But
Give or give or take.
2023,
Yeah.
right? So it's not the whole Jalen Neal anymore, but they definitely, he changed agents. So this has to be a huge year for him. Didn't start well with the injury, but this is a golden opportunity for if he gets that start,
Mhm.
if Joel Waterman's not back. But let's go ahead and look at the fullbacks with Alexander Guboglu on the
Yes.
right and Luca Petrasso on the left. Guboglu was a breath of fresh air when he was first inserted as a sub in the Minnesota game as a wingback, right? He was subbed in as a wingback when
Mhm.
when CF Montreal was still playing the wingbacks, and he did really well. He did the one on ones. He seemed to really want to create chances. But now, since there's been the change of scheme, he's going more as a right back.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. He said it in the press conference that he's learning the position, especially the defensive aspect of it. Is it too soon to throw him on the fire like that, and continue starting him in that new position as he's learning it, when you have a David Bugay that is a natural right back?
Yeah. Um, on paper, right? The problem, not the problem, but what was more important for him to work on as a right wing back under the five back system was going forward, because defensively he had his side completely locked up. So naturally, you would assume that the more defensive role of a right back, of a conventional right back, even though you do get upfield and you are involved with the play. Excuse me. I thought he would have. I thought he would have. Looked perfectly comfortable, and he did look great against Chicago. Against a team like Columbus, I think he was a little bit exposed, just in
Mm,
terms of not necessarily quality, but lack of experience there.
yeah,
Because the thing that, again, what Columbus does so well is they're amazing at playing in these half spaces and sowing doubt and creating multiple threats and forcing the defense then to make decisions as individuals and not as a unit. And this is where a 17-year-old, sorry, 18-year-old now, is not out of sorts, but definitely in a bad matchup because you have such a finely tuned machine. So I wasn't surprised that he started. I was surprised that he struggled. And David Bugay, who came in at halftime, which was a bit more of it is a defensive substitution, but it's also a more experienced right back, had a really strong game.
yeah,
I think.
yeah,
I think he looked really good.
yeah,
I don't know if it's enough to take the starting spot off of Guboglu, but I think this does confirm that Jaquil Marsh-Rudy is going to be playing as a winger this year, because I people have forgotten that David Bugay even existed up until last night, right? And so now he came on instead of Jaquil Marsh-Rudy. I'm not too surprised that I wouldn't be too surprised if Jaquil Marsh-Rudy has ended up being used as a winger, some kind of super sub, because David Bugay did very well. And if Kuboglu and Bugay is your tandem, then Jaquil Marsh-Rudy needs to find somewhere else where he fits in.
yeah. And that's the thing. It's also, you're absolutely right, and like the way Columbus plays, the way Nancy likes to play with his players is,
Mhm.
for an 18-year-old kid that is just learning a
Yeah, no,
position.
it's a
It
lot.
lies that he if I put myself in his shoes, and I've played in games where things just seem to go all around you, and you just seem to like not even know where you're standing or where you're at the field, and that's what it feels like when you're, because again, a lot of these players have been playing together since the academy and with the crew too, and they just kind of know each other's tendency. They know where to be. They know how to be there. They know how to commit. They don't even need to talk to each
Exactly.
other. They're just there. And so for someone like Guboglu that is learning his teammates and learning the tactics, it's very, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I was I'm surprised that they keep starting him in that sense. I think he does need a little bit more experience, like maybe a few more games of watching somebody else do it, or maybe a
Mhm.
few minutes here and there. We'll see. Luca Petrasso on the other side, though, he continues impressing me. I think he hasn't done anything major wrong. Yesterday, I didn't see him do anything wrong. Maybe I don't know what your take is on that, Elias, but I do like what we are seeing, especially from someone that is considered a trialist, that was considered a trialist at the beginning
Mhm.
of the season, and is now, to me, a solidified starter on that
Yeah.
left back position.
Yeah, I think that, Tom Pierce had the misfortune of just having a really difficult start to the season. But when you're in a when there's a position in a club with no number one starter, obviously there's, momentum is super important. And Luca Petraso's in excellent form right now. So credit to him. I mean, I didn't really have much to say about his game last night, but he was again solid, right? I'm not gonna there's no dissertation to say, but again, he was doing all right.
Yeah, and that's again surprising. Now let's talk a little bit about Tom Pierce and Shaquille Marshall Ruddy. I know you touched on it a little bit already, Elias. Pierce has been benched for 3 games straight. Now let's just
Yeah.
not forget that Samuel Pietz, when asked about the whole Laurent Courtois being fired, one of the things that he said was, well, the Tom Pierce situation did was kind of weird, and we like, not saying that that led to his firing, but that was definitely something that kind of got the players asking questions. But he's already been benched 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay. And Marshall Ruddy has only been featuring as a sub in the last few games. Yesterday, he actually came in the 95th minute. Now, I know you're saying that he's going to play as a winger, but when he comes in yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong. Who did he come in for in the 95th minute? Was it for Sealy? I'm sorry,
think
I should
so.
know that.
Yes, it was for Sealy.
Okay, but the point is, what's the deal with these two players?
I think it's a case that, it's not that they're playing badly. It's just that Guboglu has been in excellent form, and so is Petrasso. I think that they've both been playing very well, especially the last 2 games. And so it's more of a no hard feelings, but there's people in the spot right now that don't deserve to be taken out of the lineup. Right? Tom Pierce, I think, will, when not if, when he gets minutes, um will again look more comfortable in a conventional left back because there's just less running to do. David said Sealy should be replacing Petrasso on that side and things would be much better. Again, I disagree because
I
Sealy
disagree.
on the right wing, and we're talking about Sealy on that right wing has been not a revelation because it is a natural position, but it's a breath of fresh air, man. He looks so good. We're gonna get into that later, but I
Yeah,
think on the left side, Tom Pierce will have well, he'll have you know hopefully a boost of energy that he hasn't been there in a while and he's hungry to get back. But I think it's more a case of, right now they're not absolutely needed. And the people in their positions are doing a very good job, a very reliable job.
yeah, and I just to me it's also I guess where I'm coming from, Elias, is because let's just call it the case of Tom Pierce, um, was because it was like highlighted as it being like something that caused problems. So my question in my mind, Elias, today comes out: was Laurent Courtois right in leaving him home? Maybe he didn't communicate it well. Completely, I'm okay with that.
I,
That's
I I
something
mean,
that
I mean, this is not news that Laurent Courtois is not an amazing communicator, right?
I
Even
mean,
last year, he struggled. He what he meant and what he said were not always the same thing. And you can infer from context what he meant to say, but sometimes what he would say would come across a bit sharp. And that was only to the media. So I can imagine it's not too dissimilar when it comes to interactions with players or staff. Um I'm not saying he was shitting on people and just being mean spirited, but when he says something, you don't know when you say something, you don't know how someone's going to take it, right? And especially when it comes to someone not being good enough. Because let's face it, Tom Pierce at the beginning of the season was not good enough. Let's call a spade a spade. Did he deserve to be just completely exiled? Maybe not, but he was not good, right? Dante Sealy definitely deserved to be put into that left wing back spot. Um, but I'd love to see him be integrated into the team a little bit more because again, there is a certain quality to Tom Pierce that nobody else in the team can bring. Absolutely no one has that left
crossing.
foot, that kind of left foot, right? So I think that's also very important to remember.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like again, if the benching of the games continued, then there's serious questions to be asked. Might be too soon. All right, so let's move on to the midfield. We had Nathan Saliba,
Mhm.
Victor Latori, and Samuel Piet. How'd you like the setup? The three of them.
Victor Turi was the one playing further up the field. I thought it was going to be Nathan Saliba, just because again he's technically better. But they preferred to have Laturi as kind of the French term is électron libre, to kind of just run around all over the place. And Saliba and Piet were, a proper two. As a group of three, I did not like the game. I did
Yeah,
not like the game they had. The gaps were everywhere. The gaps were super dangerous spots. It's not like they left a gap in front of a fullback or something. They would leave gaps in front at the top of the penalty area all the time. And this is again, I don't care if this is a new system. You have been playing together now for the better part of like a year and a half at this point, a year and change. That's simply unacceptable, right? Nathan Silva and Samuel Piet are too good and too comfortable with one another to be leaving the kind of gaps they were leaving. Victor Luturi did look a bit out of sorts as well, but that one is maybe a little bit less surprising because he was again that kind of free roaming. The guy's fitness is phenomenal, by the way. He
yeah,
he he runs and he does not stop. It's incredible. The work rate for Victor Luturi, chapeau. He's great, but technically speaking, I still think he needs work. I don't know how much I loved him being the guy that would end up being furthest forward more often than not. He did contribute to the Caden Clark goal that was called back for offside. He just a little toe poke and ended up laying off for Caden Clark. But again, when it comes to especially on the road capitalizing on very small chances, I would rather have Nathan Saliba, who's a lot more clinical and a lot more comfortable in advanced areas on the pitch. But overall, I was not super impressed. I mean, it did get better in the second half. First half in general was disastrous, but
yeah,
it did get better in the second half, and they did get a bit more comfortable and they grew into the game. But you are far too familiar with one another, and you are far too good at what you do to be putting in 45 minutes like that. That is unacceptable because you don't have the excuse that Joel Waterman and George Campbell have. Joel Waterman, excuse me, and George Campbell have, where this is a brand new system for them. They've been in the midfield and they're doing their thing. And it's the same thing that they've been asked to do,
mm,
and it's just unacceptable.
yeah. I felt like in the first half, the midfielders of Columbus Crew realized that Nathan Saliba and Victor Latori were gonna follow them around. So what they did is they moved up as high as back as they could to their goal,
Yeah,
knowing that Samuel Piet was gonna stay back. So as you said, this caused a massive lacune where there was a big spot between the
look
two.
at Saliba and Luturi.
Yeah, exactly. And look at
They're
the
playing
gaps.
as strikers.
Yeah, and that's why the midfielders were like, "Well, are you guys gonna follow us around? So we're just gonna go ahead
It,
and go as
it
low as
doesn't
possible."
excuse George Campbell's positioning. It
No,
does not excuse that,
let's go
but
back to that.
it doesn't excuse that positioning. But when
Yeah,
you look at everything, right, it's a complete failure in
yeah,
understanding what man to man is and
yeah,
when to execute it. Because this isn't basketball where you do it for the whole game.
yeah.
There has to be on and off switches. You're
And
100% right.
that's what it's and I'm not gonna say that the Piazza Libo combination is something as David says the Piazza Libo combination is something I've been saying doesn't work going back to last year. It simply doesn't work when they play beside near each other. I disagree because I do think that their combination actually works. They complement each other really well when they don't have such a huge gap between each other. But based on what we were seeing, Elias, it just seemed like the Nadal had told them, "All right, dude, you guys are gonna follow number 27 or whatever number you, and just follow them, just follow them wherever they go. Like when you're watching Pee Wee soccer, that you just follow your player, and so it just felt like that. But when in the second half they put Nathan Saliba next to Samuel Piet, and they actually put Caden Clark and Victor Lotori to go again up higher, it made a little bit more sense. And you saw the game develop a lot better
Yeah.
than when you had Nathan Saliba so high up because in the second half, Nathan Saliba also made some impressive stops. So um, kudos to Marco Donadel and his staff. I'm going to say and his staff because I'm not going to put it all on Marco Donadel for spotting something that they could have improved on, a weakness, a mistake that they made, maybe in in placing players in a certain way. But yeah, it was ugly at the first. It was ugly in the first half. It was
It was
nasty to
not
see.
good.
But look, I think we're starting to see the kind of midfielder Laturi is and what he can bring to the team. But is he better, in your opinion, than Fabian Herbers when he comes back from injury?
Different player. I would have loved to see Fabian Herbers in that role where he is the most advanced in the midfield three. Um, that could be very interesting because he has the technical quality that Victor Laturi does not. But yeah, they're different guys.
Yeah, very different players,
I
absolutely.
wouldn't for a game like this. I'm not too surprised that he got the start. Um, I'm just surprised where he was deployed. I think is the better wording, because again, Nathan Saliba is the better technical midfielder of the three. He should have been the furthest forward one. That's just a fact.
Yeah, and I don't. I mean, I've seen too little of Fabian Herbers to really like say if he's better than Laturi, but we're seeing more of Laturi, and again, understanding who he is as a player.
Well,
Um,
not being injured helps.
yeah, exactly. And well, Herbers, we'll see. Honestly, like when we saw him play that game where he got injured, I'm forgetting right now who it was against, but where he seemed actually tired. He seemed this was 2 games ago, Elias. It was
Was
I
it
think.
DC?
I believe so. Yes, it was
It was
Laurent's
before
last game.
Nashville. It was
It was
before Nashville.
Laurent's last game.
He didn't
Laurent's
play
last
against
game.
Nashville. Did he play against Nashville?
You're gonna make me look
He
up
did. He
stuff.
did play against Nashville. Yes, you're right.
Okay,
So it was
so
Nashville.
um, he seemed tired, and I was like, why is Fabian Herbert so tired? Like he was everywhere. Elias, he was going left and right. We're not gonna go back to that game, but he looked tired. Now it makes sense that he had an injury that he's out for so long
Yeah.
because he was probably playing injured, and that makes a lot of sense. Uh, but we'll see. I mean, interesting profile, and we'll definitely keep an eye on that. So up front, we had Dante Seeley and Caden Clark as wingers with Prince Owusu as a 9. How did you like this combination of these three?
I can't believe it. For the first time ever, the attack is not the problem.
Yeah,
No, they did a very good job at creating chances. It's unfortunate half a step offside on two different occasions cost them 2 goals. What a ball by Nathan Saliba on the Victor Loturico that called out for offside. It's a beautiful ball. Just unlucky. But yes, this combination of Prince Clark and Sealy, I love it. I love it. They play off each other very well. It's a very direct front three. All three of them can run. All three of them can run with the ball. All three of them can shoot. I think that this is going to be very interesting when they play against low blocks, because there's um maybe not this ability to stop. But if they play in open games and they play in games like, if this was the front three in Nashville, that's not in Nashville, sorry, in Atlanta in the first game of the season, it would have been insane. If you were to take this team right now and plug them into Nashville, the first game of the season, with these tactics and with this ability to play in space, it would be so fun to watch, because the three of them really can carve a team up when you give them space. And so that's what happens when you stretch the field and you have wingers and you have multiple attacking options. I do think that the fullbacks need to do a better job at helping them, because or else it's too easy to kind of just take, to defend them. So whether it's Gbogbo, Bugai, Pierce, Petrasso, Robbie, um, don't Elias. It's true. They're fun to watch. You can't say they're not. Um, and they're scoring.
yeah. But
Scoring in the
look,
game, maybe scoring.
look. I've said it in the past. I like Owusu's game. What he does, everything around the box. I love what he does around the box. I love everything he does, but when it comes to him in front of the goal, Elias, it can be infuriating. Now I'm starting to see Dante C. I absolutely love
He
Dante
scored.
Sealy. I absolutely like to see Dante Sealy as a winger, but I'm starting to see the different profile of Caden Clark and Dante Sealy as wingers. Completely different, because Caden Clark, he has, when he puts his will into it, when he wants to actually do, he has an insane 100% level of hustle where he just hustles, ball after ball. He has a very interesting vision of the attack and how to create it. Dante Sealy, on the other hand, he has a kind of, I don't know, Elias. I see from time to time he seems to have this, like, he jogs a bit. He jogs a bit. He kind of strides. I can't even say if he's running. He's kind of striding. It looks like a weird kind of running that he does. That he gets from point A to point B. But it's just uh again, you're not sure if he's like actually running there or he's jogging there. And again, this is something that I read in the past in FC Dallas was one of the things that they give him a lot of slack for, but for sometimes missing some hustle. And I saw that yesterday. And also his decision making when it comes to the attack is sometimes a little bit questionable. And again, he had that setup. He had that goal of Luca Petrasso that set him up last week. But it's just something that he seems to have, and he's only, I believe, 20 years old right now. I might be wrong. I believe he's pretty young. So he's got a lot to learn, but a very interesting profile. But you notice the differences. Elias, did you also notice? I know I'm kind of going back, but did you notice in the first half how wide the center backs were playing? Like Waterman, and like was
Yep.
because Piet was going down really low as almost a center back along with George Campbell and having
Yep.
the so it was it's this formation is driving me crazy right now because I'm trying to understand it little by little, but yeah, it works. It does work, but Prince will, like Elias yesterday, if they would, if we have a, I don't know, a DP striker or something,
Prince was amazing.
Prince
He
played
was my man of the
well.
match. He was my man of the match. He said he set up. He helped set up Caden Clark's goal even before, when it was Rudolph offside. He was carrying the ball. He scored. He set up Caden Clark, who then shot and hit the post before he scored. I think he was the best player on. I would think he's the best player for Montreal last night.
But even look, Elias, even when he scored the goal, okay, now I'm being nitpicky, but even when he scored the goal, if you see, there's a tiny second where Patrick Schulte is facing his goal, literally has the back to Owosu. Owosu took an extra step to set himself up for the shot, enough for Patrick Schulte to dive to the left. I'm being nitpicky, but any other striker has that instinct to be like, just kick it, dude. The goal is empty, and the goalie is looking the other way. They're confused.
And if
You
he
know.
misses, everyone's gonna go. You have all the time in the world. Take a touch. There's no winning with you, man. There's no winning with you. Look.
It should have been better.
That's super nitpicky, but
Yeah.
you could only nitpick when it doesn't work,
Okay.
right? Like
Like
if
with
he had taken a touch and then
Kokaro last
Schulte
year.
had enough time to get over and stop that, then rip him a new one because he deserved it. But he was aware of how much time he had. He took a touch and he finished. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong, right? If you want him to hit it first time, that's yeah, sure. But score the goal.
Yeah.
It wasn't not a goal where he oops his way into it. No, he meant to shoot that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Good
not
for
just saying
him.
if
Good.
you're only in the same spot, he scores more often than not.
And
Yeah,
we'll get
I
to
mean,
that.
to be fair, every striker kind of scores that.
We'll get to that. I was actually going to ask. My next question was with the imminent return of Giacomo Viglioni and Joel Anthony Vilsain, who's bound to return at some point, who's the solidified starter in the winger and number 10 position? I'm not talking about the striker right now. I know I said
Mhm.
Giacomo, but the winger and number 10 position, which we also had that Tate Brooks question
Yeah.
about Bryce Duke.
Yes.
So Tate Brooks asks us, does Duke start next week at home? Okay. And the reason why I'm pulling up that question now, Elias, is because we're going to talk about that. There's a lot of returning injuries. There's a lot of returning
Players
injuries.
returning from injury. Yeah.
Players returning from injury. Sorry, guys, I just finished my coffee, which was a bad idea. So I'm talking faster than I'm thinking, or I'm not sure. Anyways, so work with me. Who's the solidified starter in these positions for you, Elias, right now? Today.
I
With
don't
the
think Viorni's
return.
going to start. I don't think Viorni's going to start next week because again, he's just coming back from injury. Again, I would bet. No, I'm not going to bet money.
Ooh,
I would be very confident in saying that he'll come off the bench at some point. Next week, I think Owusu is going to start. Um, as for I do think Bryce Duke is going to start in the 10 because they'll go back to a 4-2-3-1, I think, because again, they're anticipating to have the majority of the ball. You're playing Charlotte, you're playing at home in front of your home crowd for the first time this year. You are expecting to control the game. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 4-2-3-1. And honestly, I think that the four will the four attackers, the three and the one in this 4-2-3-1 are going to be the same as Chicago. I think Dante Sealy is playing too well right now and offers that shot from distance that you kind of need against low blocks. I think Caden Clark is finally starting to find himself. I think Bryce Duke at home is. I mean, I posted the meme as a joke, but like Bryce Duke on his day is actually a phenomenal player. And when he feels like it, and when he's in the mood, he is borderline untouchable. The problem is, getting that consistently.
Yeah.
But when he's on, he's on. And Prince Wusu, I think right now is the most informed striker on the team, right? Jonathan Evie saying, I hate to say it, as good as he is and as talented as he is, and the things he could do, your best ability is availability.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that you can bank significant tactical preparation on a player that you don't know is going to be fit in 2 weeks. That's just the truth. Um, David says, I think. No, not that bad, but we're kind of flirting with it at this point
Elias, he
because
was injured for the game against CF
he
Montreal.
was. That is kind of ironic.
I mean, come on, man. What are we talking about here?
That is
Gee,
kind of ironic.
I'm sorry. You can't laugh about somebody's injury. That's really mean. But
But
yeah,
yeah, I think they're going to stick with the wingers. I don't think that well, because the thing is, David talking about a 4-1-3-2 like a diamond. I don't think they have the midfielders for it. I just don't think they have the midfield quality purely
yeah,
to just play up the middle. I think you need the wingers to stretch the field. And again, your best players right now, in terms of form, your best players are Dante Sealy and Caden Clark. They're wingers. They are proper wingers. Caden Clark could play in the middle if Jakil Marsharudi looks good, or if Hennady Sinchuk looks good, and they prefer to play out wide. That's a different story. But right now, you need your wingers and you need your wide players, and not just wing backs, proper wingers, because that is where all the offense is coming from the last two games. That's where
yeah.
everything is coming from. It's from getting the ball wide, crease the space in the middle. Lo and behold, by magic, somehow they score. That's exactly how it works. It's width first and then middle.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to see. Like you said, I do think Bryce Duke is going to start next game solely because he seems so comfortable in playing at Stade Puro
Yeah.
with no pressure on him.
Lifetime
And I
contract.
mean,
Oh yeah.
and right now Dante Sealy and Caden Clark are playing lights out as wingers. You're definitely going to be more comfortable, like putting maybe Samuel Pietz a little bit higher, not as low as he. I wouldn't honestly, Elias. I wouldn't put what we saw against Columbus Crew, especially the formation or even like the following the man, as like the way CF
Oh,
Montreal is going to
definitely
play.
not.
In my opinion, the only thing I want to take from yesterday is the attitude of the players, of the CF Montreal players
The attacker specifically. Yeah, I
losing
agree.
2-0 away from home. And what are you going to do? Did they put their heads down? Did they start pointing at each other? Elias, something I've noticed from the past, from with the Laurent Courtois as opposed to Marco Donadel, was Laurent Courtois would always say, my front three, my back three, my middle. He would separate each segment. And I think maybe the players felt like they were separated into segments. I'm the front three,
Hmm.
I'm the mid three. As opposed to Marco Donadel just speaks about like I want like about each player, and he talks about steps, every step that is taken, every step that is taken. So I think it's just a different approach, a different way of communicating what they both wanted, right? You don't separate the players. You would see a lot of that at lies when they conceded goals. There were like finger pointing. You were supposed to be there. You did that. You did all that. Like you were always like
Yeah.
assigned.
No.
So now you're just seeing a more unified group, a more unified like that they're playing on the field as a group. Are they perfect? Far from it. They still have a lot of work to do. But there's players that are injured that are returning, right? So last but not least, let's talk about the subs. Did anyone
Let's.
impress you in particular?
We talked about Bugai and Alvarez. We talked about the impact that they had, and yes, I think they did very well. I think Bugai in 45 minutes managed to put himself back into the not starting discussion, but definitely having a more prominent role discussion. It's very clear that under Laurent Courtois, he was non-existent. He was there for like a couple games after he got signed and
Yeah.
then vanished off the face of the earth. So I think that, you know, Marco Donadel, who has a little bit of a Bologna link, who has a little bit of a maybe a more soft spot for people who have some connection to Italy, and who
You're
needs
going there, Jesus.
and no, but not just that, and someone who needs a conventional right back, right? Jakil Marsharudi is more of a wing back kind of
Yeah.
player.
Yeah.
Alexander Guboglu, I think, can be a right back, but right now the only proper conventional experienced right back you have on the team is David Buga.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be surprised. He did a very good job at increasing his value, which is what you want to do, right? You want to help your team win. But as an individual, as a substitute, you're there to make the case as to why you should be getting more minutes. He did that perfectly. Who else was it? It was Duke, um,
Uh,
Marshall Rudy,
yeah,
and
Mr. Ready.
was there a fifth substitute? I don't think so.
No, no, no,
No, there
no,
wasn't. I
no.
mean, Duke and Marshall Rudy didn't really have enough time to kind of leave an impression, right? Jakim Marshall Rudy came out with like 2 minutes left. Rice Duke came out with like 5 minutes left. They were there. They did not cost a goal. Congratulations. But I mean, besides that, I didn't really see a whole lot from them. I am curious to see Jaquil Marshall-Rudy as a winger, though. I am very much looking forward to it because he can dribble and he can get forward. He can, and he loves combining with people. But he was so obsessed with making sure he was defensively solid when he was a wingback that he just completely neglected that side of the game. Now, as a winger, where you have less defensive responsibility, not none, but less, I really want to see what he can do when he's just, Marco Donell can kind of say, take the leash off and say, you know what, go nuts.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious because, again, it can't be much worse than when he was a wingback. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly, and it's definitely as far as who impressed me as subs. I do agree that David Bugay, who we haven't seen in forever. You he's been here since last year, and I honestly I can't say that I fully understand the kind of player he is, but it's just like yesterday. Again, it just felt like he was natural there. He understood what he had to
He brought
do.
the good energy too, right?
He brought a very different, unexpected energy to that formation, and I liked it. I said I thought to myself, I want to see more of this, because again, Guboglu is learning the position,
Yeah.
and it just is not natural to him, and it's not his fault. He said it since the academy. He said it in our interview, right? That he since the academy he's been playing that position, and he even played forward. So there's a lot of learning, and actually, Elias, if we're being honest, playing maybe at home might be the best learning for him, because he's a little bit more comfortable and he might be able to, learn at his own pace. But yeah, besides him, Fernando Alvarez, we'll see. Honestly, didn't do much to impress me, but I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. If you're not making, you know, if you're not part of the story, then you're okay. You didn't do anything wrong. But I have one last question before we move on to our last topic. Is there anybody in this roster that you think should be concerned about the future in this team with the new coach and scheme?
Concerned.
I would say, I'm gonna tell you, I who I think should be concerned is Bryce Duke. I think Bryce Duke needs to be
I don't
seriously.
know. I don't know. He did really well against Chicago. Um, I think it's too early to say about Bryce Duke. I think if he continues to plateau, I agree with you. Especially if Hinadi Sinchuk turns out to be a revelation. But I think right now it's a bit. I could see that down the line being definitely a strong consideration. For me, unfortunately, it's Sanusi. As
Yes.
much as it pains me to say this, it is Sanusi, right?
Do you have
You're
a
not.
list? Because it doesn't have to be one person. Do you have like maybe a list of players that should be concerned right now?
Nobody else comes up to mind at the top of my head. If I look at the
Okay.
entire roster and think about it a little bit harder, maybe. But if you're looking for a gut check answer, like immediately, Sanusi.
Yeah.
There's no other forwards available. It's just him and Prince. Prince is obviously the starter, but he's not even getting substitute minutes now. When they were chasing the game. So I think that, and he left the sub on the bench. He didn't even use a sub. It was there. So I think honestly, that's, and it kills me because I love Sanusi so much.
Yeah.
But based on just the way that he's being utilized, maybe they're looking at other alternatives. I'd
Yeah.
love to see him score in the Canadian Championship because he's tied for like the most goals all time in the Canadian Championship, and he's my can champ Ronaldo. But I think that if I had to pick one player right now, it'd probably be him.
And we do have David here that also said there isn't a single player on this team who is 100% starting player on more than half the teams in MLS. Okay, that's an opinion. I disagree with it. But
Yeah,
in that list, Ibrahim, he like you mentioned, Bryce Duke, Yankov, and JMR. I actually agree with that list, Elias. Um, yeah, and
that
JM.
list, none of them are ridiculous to me.
Yeah, but should they be concerned? Because I mean, with all the signings they've had in recently, and I think Bryce Duke's time in Montreal, just for him and probably for the club
Hmm.
too, has maybe reached its end because it's just they've been patient for already since 20, I want to say 2023, right? Summer 2023 as well, with Hernan Lasada. And they've given him the starts. He hasn't been on the bench.
Yeah,
He's very much played. And yes, like you said, he's had some games where you're like, oh my God, c'était l'élément déclencheur. Like if he finally,
yeah.
we're finally seeing the real Bryce Duke. But it just never
We saw the real
continued, and
Bryce Duke. He just has to be more consistent.
is not consistent. It's not every game. You want to see a Bryce, so I think he's on borrowed time
Yeah.
here with CF Montreal. Same with Vilsain. I think he should be really concerned because the injury issue is problematic. Elias, I don't know if that's the whole Jules Anthony Vilsain situation. It has something to do with maybe the league, or maybe it's a personal, maybe mental thing. I don't know, but it just doesn't seem like he can. Again, we'll go back to La Sila Pailainen, right? Like it just can't string performances to like enough. Even if in training camp he was amazing, um, and yeah, I just and Sunusi, like you said, like he just seems like, and they even signed 16-year-old Owen Graham Roach. Like, what does that tell you? And he's still a very,
Yeah.
very young guy. I think you get some value off of him, but yeah, there's a few in that list that have a lot to play for.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So let's move on to the questions. We missed one,
Yeah,
and we do apologize
we
for
got
that
a
from
couple
Norm.
questions from
Yeah.
the Twitter. The first one is from Normand. Again, yeah. We're sorry, Normand. It was a very busy episode last week. Crazy
Apologies.
busy
Yeah.
and flew under the radar. But very good question, which is why you brought it back for this week because it is evergreen. Joey Saputo is always a hot topic in Montreal. Do you think Joey insulted Gabriel Gervais, Gigi, and all the work he's done over the past 2 years by saying what he said in the interview? I would be discouraged if I was Gervais. In my opinion, Joey's passion always ends up being a media disaster for CF Montreal. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think he insulted him more than we talked about it last week, and we'll say it again. It's just Joey Saputo's interview was so confusing to me in so many sense because Elias, I don't understand what the point of the interview was, what he was trying to get out of it. Did he shoot some arrows? Yes, but was it at the fans? Was it at the club? Was it at the people that are there since he's left? Like, what was his intention in these messages? What was he hoping to get out of it? Was he trying to get a reaction out of the city? Was he trying to get a reaction out of it, Gabriel Gervais? Like, it's just a lot more questions asked than answered in his interview. Did he
Hmm.
insult him? I think insulting is a harsh word, but he definitely said it like it's not the same. And I don't think he pinpoints Gabriel Gervais. It might be a general thing. Maybe it's an environment thing. That he's
Hmm.
talking about. What did you think about that?
I don't think he meant to insult Gervais. I just think that he meant. Just have to say what Joey Saputo means nowadays, but I think it's more important to think about, um, you know, this is everything Gabriel Javet does is more or less signed off on by Joey Saputo, either directly or indirectly anyway.
Yeah.
Um, whether it's him, whether it's the board, whether it's both, whether it's the Saputo family, I really think that right now, because this was an interview about Bologna, and this was like one question. We got a whole week's worth of news off of one question. It was hilarious. But I really think that honestly, if I'm Gabriel Gervais, I'm not paying it any mind. Um, if he feels a bit, maybe not insulted, but a bit slighted, maybe I'll be like, okay, that was kind of a weird thing to say. But honestly, I respectfully, I understand that he's like, if I'm Gabriel Javet, he's my boss. Robbie kind of saying the loud part, the quiet part out loud. But um, if I'm Gabriel Javet, I know he's my boss. I don't give a shit what he has to say.
Really?
Right? He's not. It's because the thing is, a lot of his comments are on the day-to-day stuff too. It's like, but you're not here. Well, you're gonna comment on the day-to-day, but you're not even like you're in a completely different time zone, let alone in the city and working with the club. So, you know what? Talk your shit. There's so many more uh, uh proper and justified things to complain about towards Gabriel Javet, not just Gabriel Javet specifically, but the club in general, than what Joey Saputo said that I really don't even have time to
Yeah,
talk
I
about.
mean, it's like I said, I'm just so confused about that. And what was the aim? Was he trying to light a fire under somebody's ass? Is he trying to say like that's how it is, and now it's going to change? Like, what is he doing? What do you want,
Yeah.
Joey? What do you want out of all this, right? So very confusing.
Anyway,
But I don't know. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. We have
yes.
Robbie's
And
question.
Dr. Foot.
Sorry, Doctor Foot.
Yeah, Dr. Foot. When will CF Montreal get their first victory?
Saturday.
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 Saturday. I think we're in agreement there.
Yep.
I think it's high time, get 3 points on the board because it just feels right.
They're showing something, Elias. Maybe I
Charlotte
think
is in good form. I will say that Charlotte is in good form. They're like fifth in the East right now. They're doing well, but you know, Saturday.
so. David is asking us to show his response. So I get how Joey feels, but at the same time, he refuses to acknowledge that he's done a crap job in his entire ownership, and that's why things were. That's why things were and are the way they were and are. I mean, yeah, I guess he didn't ever do a mea culpa in any way besides the fact that he left. Right, right, Elias? I mean, there's not much more to say there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We got one last question. It's
Yeah.
from Robbie. Shout out Robbie. During the 2 games coached by Marco Donadel, what changes have you liked the best? What do you think will give us more success going forward? For me, it's the wingers. It's
Yes.
got to be the wingers. I think they bring a completely different asset to the game,
Mhm.
and having players in their natural position for once, you know, I feel bad for Ariel Lassiter because finally a position where you got wingers
Let's
in
bring
his
him
long
back.
time.
Let's bring
Yeah,
Ariel Lazo. Oh Jesus.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth.
Ugh.
But uh, I do think that the wingers is definitely the most important change. It's the most successful change. It's what will bring them the most success in the future as well. I think that's it, hands down.
Yeah, I think the change that I mean, I'll say two things, Elias. I think the formation change that he made is one of the best things this team needed because a lot of profiles that CF Montreal's been trying to convert into wing back or has been trying to convert into a 10 when they were wing back, like everybody seems to start fitting in naturally
Mhm.
in what they've known since their youth, since they were young, and that's saying something. And um I also really like the energy that he, like I said, something I felt that was lacking before was that connection position from position where they
Yeah.
seem to be kind of in unison working around the field. It really messed up the Columbus Crew yesterday because CF Montreal was actually very united, very together, in pressing man to man once they understood it. But yeah, and then we have one last question, right? I believe, or do we
No,
already?
that's it.
Oh, we already did it.
We
Oh,
ran the gambit.
right.
Oh my
Let's
god.
go. All right, we got the last topic of the day. Some CPL news, right? There have been some major rule changes in the Canadian Premier League recently that are bound to alter teams' roster this season. Elias, can you just bring it up? I'm just gonna read it quickly, guys. I'm not gonna read it word by word because I just
Yeah, right here.
so the CPL made the following changes to its incoming player loan rules to better align the FIFA RSTP during the 2025 league season. A CPL club may utilize a maximum of 6 incoming loans during a league season, up by one, and utilizing a maximum of 3 incoming player loans from any club, up by one from 2024. Yeah, what do you make of these changes, Eliza? What strikes you when you read this?
It felt like a very natural change, right? It's not like they're taking any crazy big swing for the fences. It just feels like when you're a league that's growing, this felt like a very logical next step. And I think that's the most important thing, right? I have to see maybe a year or two under these new rules to see are the teams really taking this to heart and putting in the effort to growing, because again, these rule changes and these ambitions that the league has to expand to new markets, including hopefully Quebec, um, and to bring better quality players and to become a better quality league, everything like that only happens if the clubs match your ambition, right? The league can be super ambitious. The clubs are like, well, I want to kind of focus on treading water right now and focus on maintaining what we have instead of growing. Then your ambitions don't really mean anything because the league doesn't generate popularity. The teams do at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I really think that they have to have some teams. And if there's some pushback, I think the first team to really embrace this and start utilizing what these rules mean and the freedom to bring in more quality that these rules do allow you to do, we'll see teams get a lot of success. And I wouldn't be surprised if teams like Cavalry and teams like Forge and teams that are jockeying for the top spot in CPL, take full advantage of this to continue to advance and then force the other teams to adapt as well.
Absolutely, and you kind of touched on it, but when looking at it from an MLS perspective, one of the more intriguing aspects of the rule changes are the new modifications to loans, which we just looked at.
Yeah.
Do you think? What do you think that says of the direction to the CPL? We're talking about expansion, right? Um, and it's becoming a very serious conversation about it coming maybe to Quebec or other places in Canada that they really want to expand. I've even heard, I don't know, I heard or read somewhere that they might even, their ultimate goal might be to have an east and west side, so like they really want to expand. What do
Mhm.
you think that says about the league, like where it's going, these rules and also all these rumors of them wanting to expand?
Again, this is logical, right? You have the Canadian Premier League is more or less stable. The Canada soccer business thing is a whole mess in and of itself. But the league is in a good spot right now. They're generating good quality football, they're generating good quality players, and they are a very real and viable professional option for Canadian youth. They're doing everything that domestic league should be doing right now. And they're also giving MLS teams not just a run for the money, they're beating MLS teams fairly consistently in the Canadian Championship.
Mhm.
So this is now the next step, right? You have to continue growing because soccer in Canada is growing. You want to get these rules into effect. You want to grow as much as you can before the World Cup because then that post World Cup boom of soccer interest in Canada is extremely important. So you have to be ready for when that hits. And if you're not ready for when that hits, then it's going to fizzle and you're going to not, you won't get the same gains you should be getting.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we want to talk about for the CPL news. Now, the Canada women's soccer team, Elias, they played
Mm-hmm.
over the weekend, um,
Yes.
Friday, right? We're Sunday, Friday,
They start Friday.
against Argentina, and they played in Vancouver. They beat them 3-0, Argentina, with a goal from Julia Grosso, Prince, and Rose. Right? Did What do you think of their performance? I mean, it's a friendly game, but it is still a very nice victory for 3-0. So, what do you think of this game? What were your thoughts going into the game? What?
Look, Canadian women's soccer is in a weird spot right now because they have no official competition for a while.
Yeah.
And so, you have these glorified friendlies, right? Which is still best on best football, which is nice, but it's not a Gold Cup, it's not a World Cup, it's not the Olympics, it's not actual competitive silverware that can be fought for. And that's what's disappointing. Um Games like this though give you the opportunity to test new things out, right? And forever now, we've been begging the Canadian, not just the women's team, but Canada soccer in general to kind of help define what this team is. And if you look at the lineup for Argentina, for the game against Argentina, Kaylin Sheridan back in nets, they switched to a back four, which is something very interesting because again, Kadisha Buchanan is out long with a long-term injury, and so instead of replacing her, they just said no third center back. So Vanessa Gilles and Jade Rose are together in the back four with Gabriel Cal and Ashley Lawrence filling that out. Janine, well, it's not. It's Sonis, I believe now because she's married. It's no longer Janine Becky. So hopefully Google fixes that soon.
Hmm.
Jesse Fleming and Emma Regan, who got her first start with the national team after moving from her American declaration, which is nice, and Marie Yasmin Alidou. the four of them were very interesting because Adriana Leon and Michelle Prince are, for all intents and purposes, right now the go-to strikers up top. They will be the go-to strikers for the foreseeable future. What I really liked is, again, forever now on the women's national team front, the attacking identity of this club, of this group, is a mystery. Nobody knows how they attack. They don't know how they attack. The attack is the biggest problem. Their midfield is solid. Their defense is borderline world class. And with a healthy Kadisha Buchanan, I'd put that back line up against any back line in the world, and I don't feel bad about it. The attack looks odd. And again, this is Argentina. You should be beating Argentina anyway. But what I love to see, what I saw on Friday was the combination, and was the fact that they were actually putting in patterns, and there was actual recognizable objectives when they were attacking. It wasn't just let's go attack and then hope for the best, and then be better than the teams are better than, and then not be good as the team, good enough for the teams that are better than us. No, they had actual tactics and an actual game plan. So that was my biggest criticism of Beth Priestman when she was around. And now, finding a new, not a new identity, because they're all the same players, but they're being utilized completely differently. Adriana Leon, who I have been hot and cold on for a while now, was phenomenal.
Mm.
And Casey Stoney is doing a great job at making this team her own. It's not just saying, okay, I'm taking over for Beth Priestman and I'm going to just try and make the same thing work. No, put in a 4-4-2. And when Kadisha Buchanan comes back, if you want to change it, fine. But this attack right now looks very potent. They've got another game on Tuesday or Wednesday, I
Yeah,
believe.
against
And then they
Argentina.
have their next game is their next scheduled game. Hopefully they have one in the meantime, but the next international window is in a while. It's in July against the Americans. That is your big test. Can you now put into practice what you're doing against teams that you should be beating anyway? So the Americans are a much more interesting opposition, and we'll be asking you a lot more questions. I'm very excited for that, and I'm also very excited for Wednesday because, the 8th, I think it is, right? So what are we today? We're the 6th, so it's a Tuesday. They're playing.
Yeah.
Because there's other players there that need to be getting minutes and need to be getting eyeballs on them. So I'm
Yeah.
very excited. Because it looks like there's actually turning a corner here.
Yeah, and that's important because after a terrible 2024, and not necessarily on the field, but just in the federation in
Just
general.
generally.
I think nobody really talks about as much as probably we'd like to, the Canada soccer team. They've made headlines for all the wrong reasons the past few years, right? So it's like you said, it's tiny steps that need to be taken in order to kind of, and it comes through victories, right, Elias? Because victories makes everybody
Through
forget.
W's, baby.
Forget everything. Everybody forgets when everybody's winning. So it's definitely important for Casey Stoney to kind of, like you said, make it her team, make it like we've
Yeah,
moved on. You're not going to see anything, and I'm sure the players feel like it's a breath of fresh air.
it is.
Anything in particular that you'll be looking forward to in the game on, we said, the 8th?
Not seeing them attack in a completely different way. You know, this attack looks good. Now you work on it. If this is the way you want to attack, then attack that way. Don't keep on flip flopping and finding new ways to make your life more difficult.
Any players you want to keep an eye on that you want to look that you're going to be keeping your eye
I,
on?
I really want to see how Emma Regan continues with Jesse Fleming because Simi Wujo wasn't there for injury reasons, but she played for United. On the weekend, she got 15 minutes in for United, so she's okay. She's on her way back. Quinn is Quinn. Quinn is an institution in Canadian soccer, so I'm very happy to see that, and also Quinn got to play in front of their hometown crowd in Vancouver, so that was nice. Um, but it just adds more competition in the midfield because Julia Grosso was also excellent when she came on, and she scored a goal. But she's a different kind of midfielder. I don't think she can work in a double pivot. I think she works in a midfield three.
Mm,
So um, maybe we'll see a different formation. I don't mind that. I just want to see a similar attacking style. I want to see the same ideas put forward
yeah.
because that is relevant. That is regardless of formation. There's the same ideas that I need to see.
One of the things that Casey Stoney also mentioned in the press after, she said like it was really nice to see all the people that were already here
Hmm.
in Vancouver, but she says there still needs to be more. There needs to what can, because we talked about it, right? 2024 was not a pretty picture for the Canadian soccer team, right? And they kind of had to kind of build back their image with Kevin Blue and all that. So what can they do besides winning, right? Because like I said, everybody forgets everything when they're winning. But what else can they do? Do they need to do like a tour around Canada? Do they need to maybe play bigger teams? What is the solution to bring more people to the stadiums?
They need competitions, right? There's the Nations League, there's the Gold Cup, there's the Olympics, there's the World Cup. How can you go a year and a half without an official competition? It makes no sense to me. So honestly, that's what gets bums in seats. Friendlies are good and all, and people love when the national team comes to town. But to be fair, Vancouver's been pretty blessed with national team games, right? They came to Montreal, right? They almost sold out Stade Saputo twice for friendlies against Brazil, right? Not twice, sorry. They sold out a friendly for against Brazil. Before that, it was like 3 years since the last time that they came to town, right? So it's the scarcity. If you're gonna play your fifth game in I don't know how long in BC, and it's a friendly against a team you're going to beat anyway, people are not really gonna show up.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. Competitions, the hype, the commercials, all that. It really
Yeah.
is what's going to
Go out
bring
and
in the
get
people.
France or Spain or Sweden or
Yeah.
Japan or some good opposition for yourself too.
Just get them, guys. Come on. Anyways, thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms, be it X, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're everywhere, guys. And thank you. And I know, Elias, we've had a lot of people join the Patreon over the week, and we see you guys. We try we interact as much as we can. Make sure to check out our Patreon page for exclusive member content and all of our social media platforms for more content. Big shout out to all of you who joined the Patreon this week, and thank you again to all of you who tuned in tonight. And see you next week for episode 222 of The Ball Is Round.